So welcome back to day 4 of the job. I've just buried that little cable. Now it's been repaired, gone down a bit deeper, get that out of my way forever. It's been an interesting discussion in the comments on the part 1 video about whether, I shouldn't have to pay for it, and same with the manhole as well that's been damaged. And it's a very it's a bit of a grey area really, and it really, there is legally as a contractor, the reality is, and I know this because a friend of mine went to court actually on a job a few years ago and disputed this with a builder. He hit a little gas service whilst working for him, and I firmly believed in that instance, because he was using the builder's digger. He was instructed to dig there by the builder. There was no service plan given. He was essentially working as labour only, right, for this guy. I believed that it wasn't his responsibility and that it was the builder. However, if my friend would have priced the work, then it would have been on him, because it's part of the risks of digging in the ground. And when you price a job, you have to assume the risks of this and work accordingly. Now, that's not how it went down. He was working, as I say, labour only, and the judge ruled at the Small Claims Court, I think it ended up being a 50-50 payment, but by the time they'd argued the point, basically my mate had to pay what would have been the cost of repairing the gas main anyway, and the builder had to pay his half, which was essentially what the court fees were. So they basically had a bit of an argument, and it cost them both a load of money. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it went that way in that instance. And so how I've always run my business is that you have to make people aware of risks at the start when you enter into a contract, right? Because if you get a contract and you write into it that you're not responsible for services that aren't made aware to you. I mean, if the customer tells you that there's something in the ground and then you hit it, to be honest, your fault, right? But if not, then it really, to me, it's if you've written it in the contract, that you're not responsible, then you wouldn't be. I didn't. It's not how I sort of operate on price work. I sort of look at it and go, well, good digging techniques, should see you around 99% services, and it does. So as I said, it's the first one I've hit in a long time. And yeah, who's to know? Now, it would have picked up with a CAT scanner, so again, partially my fault, didn't CAT scan it. I would have found it if I'd have had a CAT. I would have found it with the shovel. Arguably, would I have gone through it with the shovel? It was so shallow. But it's my risk. That's what you do when you price a job. And that's why there's more money in this job than what it would be if somebody hired me on day rate, because I take on some of the liabilities for these things, right? So, and also the time, this job takes a little bit longer. It's my risk, that essentially, right? So that's how I view it, especially after, let's say, a bit of experience, a friend of mine going through it himself. That's how I see it these days, and that's the view. The manhole is annoying. Didn't really want to find that. In this particular instance here, the customer has been kind enough to say, and this is completely up to them. I was offering to pay for it, but he's got his electrician who was here anyway, working on the house to solve the cable problem, and he's going to absorb the cost of that. And I'm going to do the manhole. So arguably we've come to an agreeable kind of 50% anyway. It's not like the customer's fault, because he didn't He didn't lay the cable. He didn't break the cable. I broke it. So that's how I see it, really, as a contractor. You do take on these risks. Somebody said in the comments, I think, well, you'd be assuming all the risks, and you basically are. And if you haven't been caught by this yet and you're a contractor, you've done bloody well, because if you went to court about it and a customer kicked up, that is how it would be. You would struggle to be exonerated. You dug it up, essentially. I dug this cable up. I'm the one who did the damage, so that's how a judge sees it. It's my responsibility to repair. That's their view on it. So that's how I've always run my business since. Anyway, these even on jobs where you get told, and they've done a survey and it's all in the ground. I've done plenty of work where there's been, ground investigation surveys done, and even then you can't be guaranteed that the stuff. I found one the other week, a water main running across. It didn't come up on the ground penetrating radar at all. I knew there were other services there, but this little water main was a hidden element. And you think, well, I always dig in the ground. I'm always very careful, and you're looking for evidence and, of a trench. If they'd have dug a proper trench for this, we'd have seen it, because the ground is quite sandy underneath. You'd have seen it in where they've reinstated it, and it would have been quite obvious. Had it been at the right depth, of course, but when you just literally peel it in the turf with a shovel, and you just pull the shovel back and tuck the cable down the back, you have no chance with that. So it's just what it is. Anyway, as I say, in this instance, customer's going to take on half the responsibility. He's going to do the cable. I'll do the lid. I already had a figure to repair one of the lids, not repair, but lower it, adapt the height of it. So it'll just be, at least I haven't got I'll already have a barrel load of muck, mixed up and stuff. It's not going to be the worst to do two when you're already doing one. So anyway, that's what's gone on with that. Just wanted to sort of clarify that. Interested to hear if any of you have come up or have had this issue. It happens all the time, and where it stands, and maybe you've been able to work a way of working around it, or spoken to the customer and they've taken on the responsibility, or maybe you make it clear in your quotes. I'd be interested to know how you do it, because partly why I do these videos really is to sort of open up a bit, sharing some knowledge, because so many of us do this work and no one tells you how to do it right. There's no handbook on how to be a contractor, how to price work, how to go about things. And that's a shame, really. I'm not saying there's one right and wrong way of doing anything. Of course, multiple ways, but I just think, bit of knowledge shared is, we all might learn something, and there's no harm in that. No one's the expert on any of this, just how we work, and, based on either what other people have done, or, people we worked with before, or whatever. So, what's interesting is, had my mate have been working for me and he'd have hit that gas, I would have assumed the responsibility for it, just automatically, because I think, well, you're working on day rate, essentially as a labour only thing. If you price that job, I'd expect it to be your risk. That's just how I view it. But interested to see what you guys out there, how you see it, or how any experiences you've got with it. Love a bit of interaction with that. Anyway, this cable's done. I need to change the bucket. That makes a whole load of buzzing, so I won't do that on camera because it's really noisy.